Well, it was exactly the way that Illinois wanted to get the season started. And with the start of that new season, of course, it means we're back to in-season Sunday No Huddles with IlliniBoard.com's Robert Rosenthal here with me in the WCIA3 studio. So, Robert, let's start first. Your thoughts on the 38-6 win by the Illini over Wyoming?
Yeah, kind of exactly what they needed to do. Wyoming is a crazy young team. They lost, they're the downside of the portal. Like 6 or 7 of their best players last year said, hey, I can go play at Texas or USC or whatever, and when you lose your best 6 players and you graduate 10, 15, 20 guys, it's going to be a rough season. So the opponent was not the bowl team from last year. This is a rebuilding Wyoming team, but still 38 points for the offense after what was seen last year. That's a real big step forward.
Yeah, and I think we do have to start with the offense. I mean, that was the talk of the town in the offseason. Specifically, the quarterback situation was what everyone was talking about. Tommy DeVito or Art Sitkowski. But Chase Brown showed it's not just about the QBs, that he's still the main man in that backfield.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to open up, right? Like, a kickoff return to the 50, a run to the whatever 15, and then a touchdown, and it's 7-0 before you blink. And actually, as I'm saying that out loud, I'm thinking Peyton Vining, who returned that kickoff, was from the same high school as Chase Brown, private high school in Florida. So that high school coach had to tune into this game and see, hey, my one guy just returned it to the 50, and my other guy just punched it in the end zone.
Not bad.
So, not bad first 3 plays for one high school. But yeah, the big talk all offseason, obviously, is the offense. And what is it going to do? Was it just the scheme last year? What's the quarterback situation going to be? Will all of this fit together? Can, the Illinois defense and the type of game played last year fit with, the UTSA offense from last year? And so far, so good. 41 passes, 40 rushes, 41 passes. A balanced attack, and I think that's what a lot of fans wanted to see.
Do you think some of those questions were answered in the game yesterday? I know it was just the season opener, week 0. You're not trying to put too much on tape, but did you get the answers? Was it just the scheme last year? Was it necessary to switch? Was it right to bring in that kind of tempo pace that they've talked about all offseason?
We talked about the offense last year and how once it got to the Wisconsin game, it was this, oh yeah, like this is totally, facing a defense like this is, okay, this is very, very difficult. And so in my mind, we'll get some of those answers once the Wisconsin game gets here the 1st of October. Okay, then you're facing your first real legitimate defense. You're not going to put up 38 points, but can you move the ball? Can you keep the defense off the field? All of those things, we're going to learn about a month.
Yeah. Well, Tommy DeVito did have a good game, completing 73% of his passes. Didn't get to the Mendoza line, as I put it on the 3-in-1 podcast, of 200 yards. It's usually what you like your quarterback, I'd say, to at least get to. But 194, 2 touchdowns. What did you make of his debut in orange and blue? This time the Illinois orange and blue, not Syracuse.
I would guess that Tommy would argue about your Mendoza line that the pass to Isaiah Williams got him over that, but then was brought back for an illegal block. So he kind of got there, and a really iffy call took it away from him. But, yeah, I mean, impressive performance. They're in the second quarter. The couple third down plays, he just missed his receivers, threw it too high, threw it too low, threw it behind a guy. There was a little murmuring in the crowd of like, oh, this is supposed to be the guy who connects on those passes. And then in the second half, he was just fantastic. From that point on, end of the first, in the second, he was on target. So yeah, there's temper everything with either Wyoming or Chattanooga will be the worst opponent, and there's a chance that Chattanooga, as an FCS team, is better than Wyoming this season. So this could have been the easiest opponent, so we have to temper everything with that and say, we're going to find out a lot more as the weeks go by.
Yeah, we definitely will learn more. I can't imagine they put everything on tape heading into week 1 against Indiana in this game. What did you think of the offensive line? There are some old faces. Alex Palczewski tying the record for career starts at Illinois with this one. Breaking the record, actually, I believe. The one that he had been tied with Vidarian Lowe. What'd you make of how they played with the new faces in there as well? Zai Chrysler getting some time. Jordan Slaughter, they kind of interchanged at that right guard spot. Yep. Isaiah Adams at left guard. There were a few penalties. The one by Pilstrom comes up in my mind that you mentioned on that Isaiah Williams run down the field. But overall seemed to be solid and took care of Tommy DeVito. Didn't allow a sack.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'll say for the interior, for Isaiah Adams and the four guys as you mentioned who were rotating on the inside, Pilstrom, Adams, Chrysler, and Slaughter. It was probably a rough first start. There's so much to playing offensive line where you want to. Like, it's about playing together, about knowing what the guy next to you. When you lose a Doug Kramer, and this is the first start with a new center, everything's going to look really different for a while. Because you had this guy, in the center, making the calls, there's the mic, there's this. You had your quarterback of the offensive line who just graduated. So it's kind of expected that the first game is going to be that. And I think that's why, if you remember when the schedule came out, it was Wisconsin the opening weekend. It would have been this Labor Day weekend game at Wisconsin, and there was no Week 0 game. I think they moved Wyoming to Week 0 for this reason. Look, we're breaking in a new line, 4 new guys on the inside. What are we going to do? What's it going to look like? And, this gives them the opportunity to slowly work into that and get there.
Let's move to the defensive side of the ball now. Some good and some bad. We'll start with the good. Quan Martin in that secondary holding Wyoming to just 30 yards passing on the entire game. There was an interception by Devin Witherspoon as well. But Martin, like I mentioned and how we talked about before we got on here, one of the best games we've seen from a secondary member in quite a while.
Yeah, I told you I was going to try to keep it below 10 minutes, but my last 24 hours in both, things I'm doing audio-wise and writing on the site and everything else have been spent trying to temper my the hyperbole I want to put around Quan Martin's performance. I said immediately after the game, I did a live thing on Twitter and said, I have to say that that's one of the best individual defensive performances I've seen on that field in 3-4 years. It was so good. It's not going to show up in the stats. 7 tackles, 3 passes broken up, this and that. He saved both long broken play touchdowns from the opposite side of the field. He broke up 3 passes, got his hand on 3 passes. 2 of them could have deflected and been tipped or been picked off. And he was constantly, a linebacker would miss a tackle, and there's Quan from the other side of the field to clean it up. It was such an impressive performance. I spent a lot of time sometimes just watching certain players. I don't watch the ball when Wyoming's on offense. I'm just standing there watching the secondary and wondering what's going on. And his performance, the way he broke on things, is so good. So, it doesn't mean he's going to do it all 12 games, but this was hey, put yourself in the conversation for a high draft pick kind of a game from Quan Martin. It was just so good.
Let's talk about that front 7, front 8 now. The linebackers and the defensive linemen didn't need to do much in this game, as it seemed like overall talent just outweighed what Wyoming was trying to do. But there are some areas where maybe you want to see some better play, outside linebacker, and just more wins on that defensive line against the opposing offensive line. What did you take from what they did?
Yeah, I would say that the most concerning thing on the defense was probably the linebackers. Wyoming couldn't pass the ball. Quan was a big part of that, but they could run the ball. They got 180-some yards and broke a few long runs. And on those long runs, they're going to watch film, and the linebacker coach is going to get on his guys. There was just some missed assignments and couldn't get off a block and read the motion the wrong way and that kind of thing, and it sprung a few long runs. And so if a Wyoming team is going to, you play that same defense against Wisconsin in a month, Wisconsin's going to have 400 yards rushing. It's just that's what it's going to be if Wyoming can pick up 182. So there's things to fix up. But again, it's why coaches, if they have a hard game on Labor Day weekend, would love to have a Week 0, because you tell them at practice, then you play a game against someone where you can make the mistakes, and then you take it back and you have the film that week and you say, look, guys, we're not going to beat really good teams if we do this, this, and this. So,
do you adjust now after this Week 0 game, Week 1 of the season, Illinois 1-0? Do you adjust your season expectations? Have they changed? Where are you at with that right now?
It hasn't really. What I wrote today was that this was walking into the casino to play blackjack. You have $100 in chips. You go up, you go down, and you walk out with $100 and you cash your chips. You get your $100 back, and you go home. It did exactly what they wanted. You're not mad about that. It's a perfectly fine evening that you didn't go crazy. You didn't really lose. You just broke even. You had fun, and you went home. So it was a break-even game for me. those concerns in the second quarter, the opening of the third quarter when Wyoming is driving and you think they're in field goal range and they have a third down, like if they get this touchdown, it's 17-10, and that's, this feels like a game that should be like 28-3 at this point. So there were some concerns at that point, but then they turned it on and they fixed it, and they, really dominated from there on out. So I think it's a break-even game. I would need to see something like that against Indiana or Virginia to adjust to how I see this season.
All right, speaking of Indiana, we'll preview them quickly before we end here. It's a week 1 game, so it's the first game for the Hoosiers. It's a game that hasn't been played since 2017, if you can believe it. Since the start of the 2010s, this game has only been played a few times, so the team's not really familiar with each other. What are your expectations going into that one? What do you want to see from the Illini that shows improvement and shows they're headed down the right direction in 2022?
I think run defense is the first. Offensive line play would be the second thing from this game that you would want to see improved. It's going to be a better team. Indiana is interesting that they were ranked preseason last year and went 2-10. That's quite the fall. They had lost some guys after the COVID season where they did really well, and it just didn't go together. So basically they rebuilt a team. They went heavy on the portal. They went out and said, let's just try a new team. Let's get this guy and this guy and this guy, and we'll just plug them all in and try to do that. Let's get a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. It's kind of like the 2010 Illinois team that, after 2009, Brunswick got rid of a lot of his assistants, put in a new offense, put in a new defense, and said, we're going to run all the same here, but you guys take over the schemes. That's kind of what Tom Allen has done at Indiana this year. So it'll be interesting. It's first game out with those new schemes. They could be struggling a little bit, and it could be exactly what they needed after a really rough season. So.
All right, one quick hitter before we go.
Yeah.
Is Chase Brown playing on Saturdays or on Sundays next year?
Good question. I would say Sundays because his brother graduates. So sure. Chase had a redshirt year when he transferred, so he still has another year of eligibility. Sydney does not. This is his final year of eligibility, even though they're the same age. Well, obviously, they're identical twins. They're the same age. But so with his brother definitely leaving, I could see this being his final season.
Well, that means he's got to have a good year to get to Sundays. So
yes.
that means good things for the Illini this year.
Yes.
All right. IlliniBoard.com, Robert Rosenthal, thanks so much for taking the time. Be sure to check out his work, and we'll see you here next Sunday as well.
All right, thanks.